Y'all ready to get started? Let's go ahead and call a meeting to order. And first of all, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. We certainly appreciate it. We got a lot of special guests with us and a lot of visitors. And certainly thank you for being here. We're going to have our Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm going to ask AFP would lead us in that, and then I'll give her invocation.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this wonderful day. Lord, thank you for city and opportunity to represent our citizens. Dear Lord, we just ask you blessings upon this meeting and each decision that's made. Lord, pray us in your will. Lord, I just thank you for all you do for us. Ask you for forgiveness. Lord, be with Francis tonight. She's not feeling well. All these many things in your precious name we pray. Amen. First item on the agenda tonight is a recommendation to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Lynn. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. The second recommendation is approve our accounts payable bills. Is there a motion to approve those bills?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Tammy, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Thank you. Privileged to have Amy Gillen and Leanne Jones here tonight to go over our audit. We met with them last week, Jan and I did, along with Alan Cantrell, and had a very good meeting and a very good audit. It's time for them to present that to us, to the city, to the council. So when y'all want to take over, welcome, go ahead.
Okay. Here's one, and I'll go ahead and make Francis one for you too.
Thank you.
Okay, of course, that's the audit report, and then, you know, if you'll open the first page, there is a, like a overview like we've used in the past. I figured we would do that again.
Okay.
I figured that would, I mean, most places think that's helpful, so I figured we would do that. First of all, though, I want to start out by saying thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. Thank you for allowing us to do the audit. We appreciate that very much. And then, has everybody found their two-page overview in the front? I just wanted to make sure before I started. So it's all on the same page. Okay. It'd probably take about 15 minutes or so, 15 or 20 minutes,
Okay.
I would think.
That's fine.
But at the top, you know, it talks about the overview of the audit report, and that's really what it is. And it's the same criteria as last year. It's basically saying where were we last year and where are we this year, and have we improved or is it worse? So with that said, we'll kind of get into the financial statements, and the first page deals with governmental funds, which is going to be all funds except for the water department, and we'll get to the water department, what you call a proprietary fund, on the next page. But you can also see at the top I have page 5, and I have highlighted there. These numbers are coming from page 5. In case you want to look at page 5, or you want to go back and look at page 5 later, or whatever. But there'll be a total column that has that on page 5. But just to start, on the balance sheet, if you look at assets for 2013, they were like $3,966,000. If you look at assets for 2014, there were $13,904,000. So that's an increase of $9,938,000. Well, that's a pretty good increase, and you can see there's a number 1 beside it, because underneath it there's a number 1, and it tries to explain the increase there. The large increase is mainly in cash. $3,187,000 of the increase was used to pay the 2006 bonds off shortly after year end. So you got the 2014 A and B bonds, and during September, and then right at the 1st of October, you used $3 million of that to pay those off. Okay. And then also in cash was the $6,412,000, and y'all can see that I'm rounding on there. But, $6,412,000, and that was the money that was sitting in the 2014 acquisition account, 2014 A acquisition account. That money is sitting there waiting to be used on improvements. So that's part of the $9 million increase there. And then also the general fund increased $545,000. So that was a good thing also. Now, those are all the increases in that line item. And there were some decreases in that line item. Accounts receivable had dropped by about $116,000, but that was due to, last year there was a water and sewer relocation receivable and an assisted living project receivable that you had on the books. So y'all now collected that money. So that's why your receivables went down such a bit there. And then also, there were some increases in receivables. This year, the downtown revitalization had a receivable on it, and the FEMA Safe project also had a receivable on it. But when you net all those numbers together, that gets you close to your $9 million increase there. Those are the main activity there, or changes. All right, so if you look at number 2, or the line item that goes by liabilities, you'll see that in 2013, liabilities were $581,000, and they dropped to $299,000. So that's a decrease of $281,000. So you see the number 2 beside it. I've tried to detail it down there under number 2. The large decreases here were due to the payables on the water and sewer relocation and the assisted project being paid. They were like $309,000, both of them together. And those have now been paid. You know, we had a receivable and we had a payable last year, and both of those have been paid now. The other changes, which were small increases, were due to various other accounts payable and employee accruals like leave, pay, things like that. So then the third item there is the change in equity. From 2013 to 2014, the change is $10,219,000, which that's also your bottom line on your modified accrual statement, which if we go down to about the middle of the page where it says page 6, it says page 6, that's going to tell you how we came about to that $10,219,000 bottom line. Okay, for the income statement, the revenues, in 2013, the revenues were $8,197,000. In 2014, they were $8,634,000 for an increase of $436,000. And then you see the number 3 beside it. So if you go down below that, the increase is mainly due to the water sewer relocation of $394,000. And then the other larger increases came as follows under taxes. Financial institution excise tax was up $61,000. And basically that's just the tax that banks pay to like the state of Alabama, and they pass so much through back to the city where they're located. And then sales tax up $22,000 and occupational tax up $21,000. There were various other small decreases that occurred, with the largest one being other revenue. And that was due to a FEMA reimbursement last year. So in all these accounts, you've got some going up and some going down, but I tried to pick out the biggest changes to let you know what they were. But the main thing is that water and sewer relocation, and what, basically money, y'all have to pay the bill and you borrow it off a credit line, and then the state pays you back, and then you pay the credit line back, so it's just constantly moving through there, but it's a lot of money that does, so that's why it affects this so much. All right, so then number 4 for expenses, they're going to show $10,096,013 and $11,838,014 for an increase of $1,741,000. So if you look down there under number 4, let's go see what caused that increase. The largest increase was in debt payments of $1,349,000. That was because you paid the downtown revitalization off with some of those bond proceeds, and the water sewer relocation increased also with the payments that you paid back on that credit line. Plus, there was some bond cost in this year. Decreases in this area were due, like under debt payments, they went down also, but that was because you didn't, you sold that industrial building and you paid it off last year, and this year you didn't have that. All right, so debt was our biggest increase in cost, and then secondly, debt repayments were the biggest increase in cost, and then secondly was in capital improvements. Which I say the next largest increase was in capital improvements of $1,059,000. Most of that increase, of course, is from the downtown revitalization project. That was the biggest one by far. And then also under this section, in this same expense column, those two increased, but then under general government, it actually decreased. And that's because of the water and sewer relocation had a decrease in expense. You might have had more income, more ins and outs on the credit line and stuff, but it had a decrease in expense of $846,000. And then there were increases on the FEMA Safe Room project and the engineering fees, both totaling $187,000. And those increases, engineering fees, when you look back there, there was a lot spent on a bridge, and then a feasibility study and testing at the Munsonware site. That was some of those costs in there. And of course, the FEMA Safe Room, that was $116,000. So an overall general operating expense stayed level, falling within the budget by function. In essence, that you have to do a comparison of budget to actual in this report. It's back there. I'll just tell you what page in case you want to look later. It's on page 32. But with that, y'all stay in budget on all of those items. So number 5, let's see, that's going to be other financing sources. So in 2013, you had $1.9 million in other financing sources, and then I might have said 2014, but in 2013 it was $1.9 million. In 2014 it was $13,424,000, so an increase of $11,507,000. So if you look down there under number 5, this item includes loan proceeds and transfers. The main thing was the 2014 A and B bonds that came through that pushed that up, and then the downtown revitalization loans. I mean, I know you paid them back, but you borrowed some the year before it was paid back. And then decreases consisted of the water and sewer relocation, no loans for the industrial building, and then transfers totaling $1.7 million. So if you merge those two together, that's going to be your increase of $11 million. But like I said, the majority of that is those 2014 A and B bonds that came in September. Okay, so then we get to the bottom line. And of course it is $2,219,955.17, which that's a healthy bottom line. And well, let me do the final analysis and then I'll talk about the bottom line, because I want you to remember something that's in that bottom line. First of all, on the final analysis, I would think that you were better off because, one, assets increased, so they did increase, that's good. Liabilities decreased, so that's good also. And then you had a positive bottom line that added to an already positive equity. And then, the key thing there is even without those loans, it would have been positive. So in essence, because you've got other financing sources in there, so you got loans coming in and loans going out, but even if you took those out, it would still be positive. So that's a good thing. But what I wanted to make sure that you considered is in that $10,219,000 bottom line, those loan proceeds or bond proceeds are in there, and they're waiting to be spent on improvements and stuff. So the year that you spend that out, that'll all come out in expense. So, that is a wonderful bottom line, but you are holding that for things going forward also. But it would have been positive even without the loans. All right, so let's turn to the next page, and we'll talk about the water department, which is the water department's proprietary fund, which is you try to earn your own way type thing instead of being financed with taxes and things like that. So this is a full accrual statement over here, and I say that because some things will come down a little bit later that will help me explain that. But anyway, this would be on page 9, this statement would be. And you've got assets and deferred outflows. In 2013, it was $14,125,000. In 2014, it was $13,901,000. So you had a decrease of $224,000. So if you go look at number 1 to see what that is, the largest decrease was in fixed assets, $420,000. This is the net of assets added. So you added assets of $59,000, but then you had depreciation of all your other assets for $480,000. So the net of that was the $420,000. So that's why they went down. But then the increases were the cash increased by $128,000, but receivables decreased by $46,000, which I'm sure they were decreased by 46, but then your cash increased, so that shows where you collected the money. And then bond cost of 29,198.19 went off also. And that's one of the things I'm going to talk about after I say this one other thing. I also added to this area was the amount of deferred on refund of $154,000. You remember, was it last year or the year before actually, when I had to come talk about GASB 45 and talk about they wanted you to change the way, you know, you couldn't pay as you go for insurance and things like that for your retirees. You had to start booking that early. Well, they came out with GASB 65 that said, okay, used to, you would, any bond cost that you had, you would capitalize it and amortize it over the life of the bond. And they said, well, we don't want that anymore. We're going to change that. You got to expense it in the year that it happens. And then also, GASB 65 says, you know, when you do a bond and you refinance a bond, you have to take the amount of the bonds that's on your books and the amount of the bonds that you get, find out the difference, and book a asset or a liability. In this case, it happens to be an asset. But used to, they had you reduce the liabilities, and now they've had you flop it and put it on the asset side. So, with that said, that's what I'm talking about when I say also added this area deferred amount on refunding of 154. Basically, when I go over number 2, I moved it from number 2 to number 1 because of GASB 65. And then on those bond costs of $29,198, they'll come up again when I start talking about the bottom line, and I'll explain that when I get there. But then, so liabilities, $3,893,000 versus $3,583,000, so they had a decrease of $310,000. So if you look at number 2 on that, the largest decrease on this line was paying long-term debt. So some of those bonds got paid down, and that's what that was. And then accounts payable increased by $34,000, and then the GASB 45, what I was talking about, not the 65, but the 45, you know, every year you'd have an accrue based on actuarial changes. And then the other was very smaller amounts, and also the $154,446 was moved to assets from liabilities because of GASB 65. So those are your changes there. But now remember on the other page, when I got to the bottom line, I said, okay, you know, I've got it highlighted there, 86,372.69 is the change in equity. And normally the change in equity is what the bottom line is on the income statement. Well, in this case, it's not. You would have to take the 86 and add the 29 that I've got right there beside it to it, because they said you've got to go through, you can't go through the current year, you have to go through retained earnings, because that should have, you know, after we've changed our mind how this needs to be accounted for, that should have went through retained earnings years ago, so that had to be written off. Okay, so to get to the income statement, you see where I've got page 10 about the middle of the page. That starts the income statement comparison. You got revenues of 2013, $1,672,000, 2014, $1,692,000 for an increase of $20,694. So if you look at number 3, it talks about the increase would be on usage, and then adding some new commercial accounts, which I've got some listed there. Number 4 on expenses, $2,164,000 versus $2,224,000. So we've got an increase on expenses for $60,202, which number 4, the largest increases were in supplies by $26,000, depreciation $14,000, and utilities $13,000, which we tied those utilities to the usage in number 3. You know, when your usage went up, did your utilities coincide and so forth, and then various other small amounts. And then number 5. Net operating revenues and expenses. The biggest thing that's in that is interest expense and amortization of bond cost. So interest is dropping because you pay back $500-something in principal, so interest is dropping. And then amortization decreased because of the GASB 65. It says no longer do you go through the income statement, you had to take it through retained earnings. So that was your decreases there. And then on number 5, transfers, $886 last year versus $786 this year. So the transfers from the general fund have increased like $100,000. And basically, when you look back at last year's, there was more capital improvements that had to be done, some things that had to be updated and things, and that's why more money was transferred last year versus this year. But, you know, if you look at the bottom line, it shows 115, 570, 88. Of course, granted, the difference between that and above is the GASB adjustment. But when you sit back and you look at the final analysis for the water, the first thing I do is I look at assets and I see that they went down. So I'm like, well, okay. But so did liabilities, and the liabilities went down more than the assets, so that's a good thing. And then equity still increased this year. So with that being said, I would say that you are in a better position. It may not be where you want to be exactly, but it is in a better position.
Better position this year than last year.
That's correct.
With-
Yes,
and
and that's
water
2 years
and-
in a row.
So the water side and the city side both have done better than
The
last
prior
year.
year,
Okay,
yes,
and that's what we want to keep.
that would be the case. And I know that's a lot crunched down, 40-something pages crunched down into 2 pages, but I figure y'all don't want to stay here all night. But I'm open to suggestions if you like to see it in a different format.
Well, you do a good job explaining it to me. I mean, if the council has any questions for you, or if they don't have any tonight, they can always call me.
Yes, definitely. I mean, later when
There's
you're looking
something in
at it,
here that we don't understand.
for sure. I'm always open to questions.
We appreciate you being here. Y'all do a great job, and glad to have you on board doing it for us.
Thank you very much.
Jan, is there anything we need to do to accept it, or
We
just,
need to vote to accept it.
okay? Does the council have any questions for Amy tonight, or you want to go ahead and approve it as presented? Is that what we need to do? Okay.
Yeah.
Would there be a recommendation to approve our 2014 audit as just presented?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Lynn, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Any other discussion on our audit? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Leanne. Appreciate you. Appreciate the good job you're doing with it. I know Adam was pleased too, because we met, last week with you and Jan, and he was real pleased with everything also. So he's very aware of what these figures are, and he was real pleased.
I think it's a really good idea that we're all working together.
I do too.
And it really works good.
It works better for y'all and for him to be separate and then
Right.
working together,
Exactly.
doing the 2 different jobs. Works
Because
better
of
for
some
the
of
city.
these guidelines, it just works out better.
Right. Good deal. Fifth thing up here tonight is the recommendation to transfer title of fire safety trailer to Marion County Firefighters Association. And I asked Tim, where's Tim? There he is, right there. Tim, if you would kind of explain what this process is and the reason we need to do this. And you and I talked about it, but I figured you could explain it better than I could.
Yeah, and I'm still not real 100% sure why it was, when it was titled to the city. The Firefighter Association put in for a grant in 2000, I guess it was, to get the fire safety trailer. It was titled to the city, but it actually belongs to the Firefighter Association. And when they got to looking and getting all their stuff together so they could pay the insurance on it, we found out that it was titled to the city instead of them.
So if in order for them to get insurance on it, it's been theirs the whole time.
It's been theirs the whole time.
When we kept it,
Yeah. And we haven't just kept it all the time, it's been in
Right.
other places, other fire departments.
other
too.
departments have
Yeah.
used it. But
It
it
belongs to them. It don't belong to us, it belongs to them.
It's just really a transfer is all it
I
is.
see.
It's nothing,
That's
it's
what it
theirs
is.
anyway.
Yes.
But it was in ours, didn't you tell me, because at the time they wasn't a 501(c)(3),
I think
what
that's,
you think
I
it
think
was?
that's what
So
I
now
was
they
doing
are?
today. Now they are, yeah.
Is that correct? Okay.
Will still remain in your possession.
Well, we've just always kept it in Hamilton because it's centrally located and other fire departments just come here and pick it up.
Okay. Would there be a recommendation to transfer this simple paperwork, really all it is, but we need permission to do it?
I'll make a motion, Mike.
Okay, Tim, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Lynn, thank you. All in favor, say aye. Number 6 is a recommendation to approve $1,500 toward I-22 weather cam for Fox 6 weather. What this is the city has, this is a third of what the camera cost, and I believe the chamber is paying $1,500, Mike Middleton's paying $1,500, and the city
And Greg, if you would, since you're connected with Fox 6 and brought this to my attention, you explain kind of what this is about?
Yeah, it's just, Marla had actually been, I guess she gets more credit for this than anybody, because she had, came up with the ideal that we might look at putting the camera on I-22. First and foremost would be for, safety from storms, because I don't know how many of y'all realize it, but the fire tower is basically about a little less than 200 feet tall, and, Tim went out with a drone and shot a little video footage, and we showed it to JP the other night at the weather event that we had, that some of you were at, and he loved the idea of having, he couldn't believe, what all you could see up there, because, you're looking back toward Lamar County and over into Mississippi, and you can actually pan around and look all the way up into Franklin County, and so he liked the ideal, and of course, they didn't have any more cameras that they could install, but we came up with a price from him, and I just think it'd be a good ideal, and I know, the Chamber's already approved it, I think Mr. Milligan's approved it, and the only other, people would be the forestry, which Tony Avery says he don't think there'll be a problem, and then, of course, SouthNet has got the power to have it up there, so it shouldn't be any issue. I just think it'd be a good idea for us to.
I do too. It's a lot of positive publicity, not only for Hamilton, but for all Marion County when they show that camera quite a bit and tell where it's at. They show the one at the courthouse all the time. And
Well, this one would show more, the one at the courthouse you can't see the storms coming in like you could with this one. And, of course, I like the idea of having I-22 on there too, because that might help us somewhere down the road as far as with recruiting, some. I don't see how it could hurt us anyway.
No, I don't either.
And it's supposed to help the forestry association.
Yeah, it would help them too. They've already okayed that through JP and the Fox, folks, that any, in the event they need it, it can be turned around and panned in any direction at any time, so that was part of it too. But I think it's a good idea, and it would be located on the fire tower and, highest point, probably one of the highest points in Marion County.
And a shared cost. We're not having to pay for it all. And this, their other two's already, Mars group's already approved it. Representative Milliken's already approved it, and it's just, if we'll do that, then all of us together can make it happen. So,
Marla, is there anything you want to add as far as?
I think you covered it. To me, the safety aspect is the number one issue. There was a camera on the tower several years ago that was struck by lightning a couple of times, was not replaced. There were issues, and we've tried for roughly, this is a year to 18 months, we've been working on this, and we've been able to get it worked out with Fox 6. So number one, safety issue for multiple counties, and then number two, to have it as the Hamilton I-22 weather camera. I think it plants that seed, as Greg said, that, we have an interstate running through here, and like I say, the positive publicity that we've received, from the coverage, because as JP said the other night at the presentation, when the bad weather comes in, typically for, large majority of the storm coverage, we're the first area that's impacted in their weather coverage area. So they start looking at us as soon as the weather, begins developing. So it's been a very positive working relationship with them, and I would strongly, encourage it. It's something, like I say, this is not something that we just thought of. Jimmy Mills and I had this discussion. It's been ongoing for a couple of years now. This is one of the leftover projects from my time as chamber president. But we, felt strongly enough that it's something that we needed to, to get done, and the partnership really makes it much easier to have.
Right. Much more affordable doing it together. Okay. Would there be a recommendation to approve this expenditure, $1,500 toward the I-22 account?
I'll make a recommendation.
Okay, Lynn. Would there be a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Greg. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I think Scott's not here, but I'm for this, but because I sit on the chamber board, I don't know, I'm gonna abstain.
Okay.
I don't know if there's any conflict because of that, since the chamber I don't know, Scott's not here, so to be safe, I am for it,
Okay.
but I'm gonna abstain from the vote.
Okay. That's all you needed, Jen, on that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, number 7 is a recommendation to approve a purchase of a copy machine for the rec center from the Witcher Office Supply in Jasper for $2,995. And we did contact local office supplies here. They do not sell this type anymore. And so, Larry, if you would, I just ask you to come and kind of explain. The copy we have is just completely
Our copy is
about
like
quick.
12
Can't
years
get parts
old.
for it.
Our copy is like 12 years old, and it's got to have a motor, and they don't make them anymore, and it don't exist here. So warehouses are sold out of copy motors and drums and stuff, so we're in the process of being out, and we need one.
And this is a rebuilt copy.
This is a reconditioned and guaranteed. Doug Puckett's represented top of us. A new one's like $6,000 for this one right here. They have a shake hands warranty on it. He'll take care of it if you go back.
Okay. And this would be purchased out of the Recreation Center Fund, which we have money to prove that, out of that fund. And it's something y'all use pretty regular.
Daily. Right now,
The copy
we're
machine
doing
there is used all the time for,
And since we have the senior room, they use it most every day.
Yeah.
Along with us.
we all use it for all your sports, printing off
All the schedules and team schedules, stuff like that.
everything, because it's used quite a bit. So there'll be a recommendation to approve this purchase.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Tim, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Greg, thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. We have signed today a proclamation for Mental Health Friday, which is April 10th, for Child Abuse Awareness Day. I want to make you aware of that. Also, the Beautification Board, the City of Hamilton, and the Hamilton Lions Club have scheduled We Love Hamilton Cleanup Day for April the 25th. This will be on a Saturday. The cleanup will be, again, be free. Hamilton Lions Club breakfast, pancake breakfast at the Hamilton United Methodist Church. Breakfast will be served from 7 to 9 a.m. that morning. It's a good time to come together. Usually several shows up, have to clean up our town, divide up in different groups, and take our garbage sacks and fill them up as much as we can. And the street department have to pick them up for us. But it's a good day to clean our city up and try to take pride in making it look as good as we possibly can. We have a special guest with us tonight, and we're going to have to go in executive session for just a little bit for economic development opportunity with Mr. Indu Avila. And but we won't be making a decision probably tonight. But what we just need to go into him, and then when we do make a decision, Ed, it will be public. But for economic development reasons, we can't discuss it until we know for sure what, you know.
But you might make a decision.
Well, I don't know that it'd be tonight, but the reason is we have to meet with him privately.
We can stay put.
Yeah, stay put, that'd be fine. But I do need a motion to go into executive session, then after that, we'll come back and adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we go.
Okay, Greg, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Tim. All in favor, say aye.
Russ all done pulled out on the mayor.
Yeah,
He gonna watch that ball game.
okay, let's go ahead and call it back into order. Motion to go back into session.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second. I'll go ahead.
All in favor, say aye. There's no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion too.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Thank you.